Okay. It's been about a week since I posted another sermon. I thought I had updated my blog and wrote an explanation. Um, I have ideas where I want to go with these sermons, and I've been planning them out and whatnot, but I'm not going to make a move, prepare a sermon, anything without God leading me to do those things. I'm not going to be doing them under my own effort, with my own ideas. I want His uh, uh, hands working in my brain and heart and mouth as I do those things. So that's why I haven't posted one for a while. Tonight, again, is going to be a bit of a departure from the identity of Christ. And what we're going to be looking at is what it means to follow Him. This is also another introduction for you to me, for you guys to know who I am. None of you know me anymore. I get very few inquiries from anybody, and there is confusion about why I'm doing these things, why I've got the sermons, why I communicate to some of you. I bought some of you Bibles. I bought quite a few people Bibles, and there's no ulterior motive for any of these things beyond sharing God with you. So as we go through this sermon, I really want to detail and lay it out what comes with being a Christian, and it shows some of the things that I'm going through, some of the things I have to look forward to, which I do. I will. And we will be all over the book of Matthew. That seems to be a recurring thing. So if you turn, firstly, to Matthew chapter 22, and we will be reading verses 34 through 40. And what's happening is there are two groups in the New Testament, in the Gospels, that really are out to bug Jesus, and they just ask him silly questions. They're double-minded people. They're don't believe he's the Christ. They want to get him in trouble, and these guys are they're silly. They're the Sadducees and the Pharisees. So here, the Pharisees approach Jesus after he answers, and it says it silences the Sadducees, and they're questioning him. They're just trying to get him to slip up. They want to get Jesus in trouble. So in verse 34 it says, "When the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together. Then one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question, testing him, saying, 'Teacher, which is the great commandment of the law?' Jesus said to him, 'You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets.'" And it's funny. It's funny that the Pharisee that approached Jesus was a lawyer. What do we think about lawyers? We're suspicious of lawyers. Lawyers are tricky. Lawyers are sneaky. And apparently that is how they felt about them at that time as well. So, which is the great commandment of the law? And Jesus names the first commandment. Now, this one commandment is enough to condemn all of us as sinners. You shall love the Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. Everything you have, all your capabilities, your talents, your feelings, everything should be completely affixed on God and God alone. If you are not doing those things, then you've broken the first commandment. Don't worry about not murdering. Don't worry about don't stealing. You're not loving God. And if you're loving God in the first place, you wouldn't be doing those things anyway. And the second is like it, Jesus says. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Now, if you take those two commandments and what they say and what they do, the first commandment is all I have is God. That's all I got. Everything I'm doing is about God. I'm totally subjecting myself to Him. The second commandment is to love your neighbor as yourself. Now that puts us in a very, very precarious place as far as ego goes. It means I, being prior military, have to love a person who hates the military. I, being prior Marine Corps, have to look at someone who is in the Air Force Reserve and love them just as much as myself. What the second commandment does is two parts. And I didn't pull up my notes on the computer. First of all, you're not better than anybody. Secondly, nobody's worse than you. And with those two commandments, to love your God, to love God with everything, and to love everybody as yourself, you effectively lose yourself. You lose your right to be self-seeking. You lose the right to want to anything just for your sake. I finally broke down after 2 months and got myself a haircut. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to spend the money on me because it's a haircut. I don't care. I have no one to keep up for. I can be spending that money on more Bibles for you guys or more study materials or whatever you need. So with those two commandments, we are effectively not of ourselves, rather, we're not for ourselves anymore. So, just to illustrate that, the complete focus we have to have on our relationship with God and God alone, let's flip back a few verses, and we'll be in Matthew chapter 22, verse 30. And this is where Jesus silences the Sadducees. To give you a little information on the Sadducees, they did not believe that there would be a resurrection. The Sadducees believed in the Jewish law, and they followed it, as did the Pharisees. However, the Sadducees did not believe that after you died, you'd be resurrected by God again. So what they did, starting in verse 23, they just said, okay, Jesus, there's a woman, she marries a man, he dies, so then his brother marries her, he dies, and basically this woman gets remarried numerous times, and the question is, when she dies and gets to heaven with them, God, because there's no resurrection, we're going to get them good, when she dies and gets to heaven and all these men whom she was married with, who's she going to be married to? And Jesus answers and says, for in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like the angels of God in heaven. So, first commandment, love your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. Even a relationship, even a godly relationship with your spouse is something you won't have in heaven. In heaven, you're not going to be married. So why be concerned so much with a relationship with another person here on earth? Why be fixing your mind, if you're free, on something like that isn't even going to last into heaven? which is not to downplay marriage at all. It's God instituted. But the only thing that we're going to have that matters at all in heaven is going to be God. We'll be able to see each other as believers, and that'll be cool. But the point is, your main focus on all things should be God. Love your neighbors as yourself. So you're loving God, and you're just totally humbled before everybody, treating them better than you should be treating yourself.